Hi, I'm Shanika Center, and I'm the Virtual Content Specialist for Middle School Science for ELS. This week's videos are going to be focused on Google Slides and how you can use Google Slides to enhance science lessons for multilingual learners. This is the first of 3 videos, and these videos will focus on the lessons for the week of March 22nd. So again, our focus this week is going to be on Google Slides, and throughout the videos we're going to focus on 3 different strategies: creating models, vocabulary, and collaboration. And of course, at the end I'm going to give you a few helpful pointers on how to use these strategies in your classrooms. So if you've watched my previous videos, you know that I love Google Slides. There are a few reasons that I love Google Slides. The biggest one is because it's free, but it's also really easy to use. It's customizable, and you can add so many scaffolds for your specific groups of students. So again, this first video is going to focus solely on creating models for your students. And typically when we talk about models, we talk about make sure you're modeling the process for your students, or modeling the task or the expectations for your students. But in this case, we're talking about allowing students to create models of things that they're listening to or things that they're reading about. So this opportunity really gives students a chance to make connections between the text that they're reading or listening to and their own way of thinking about it. So it helps them make meaning of different concepts. One way that helped me figure out how to create a model or set up the model opportunity for my students is by finding the concept in students' text that they must know, right? So prioritizing which concept is highly transferable and which will be used throughout the lesson sequence or the unit. So once you identify the concept that you want students to model, or the process you want students to model, identify pictures that are really clear. You may also need to add vocabulary words or arrows to help support the modeling. So in Unit 4, Day 8, students are expected to read this background information text that helps them locate or picture the location of the lake that's experiencing algae blooms. So obviously, students would read this. There's some high-level vocabulary in here that students may have difficulty with, but of course, you can do some vocabulary development before students are modeling this process. This text was already on Google Slides, but I just rearranged it a little bit to be more conducive for student work. I just added this prompt. You can have them arrange these pictures to show what the neighborhood or what the lake location looks like. So again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but as long as you can see that the student kind of understands that there's houses surrounding the lake, and then so of course, wouldn't want to do this for every single text, but because the idea of algae blooms is strongly related to the surrounding areas of the body of water, you would want students to understand that there's farms and residential homes and a creek that feeds into this lake for them to better understand this main concept of this lesson sequence. So here's another example from the lesson sequence of where you can create an opportunity for students to model. What you can do is chunk the text and give students multiple opportunities to engage in a modeling process. So I'm going to quickly show you how I would set up this modeling. So evaporation over land and ocean causes different amounts of water in the atmosphere. When the air mass is above land, it makes a dry air mass. This is called a continental air mass. When the air mass is above the ocean, it makes a moist air mass. This is called a marine air mass. So what I would do is I would go to image, and then I would say search the web. It conveniently pops up on the side, and I'm looking for a picture of an air mass. So let's see what comes up. So these are personally too complicated. I would not pick any of these. But for students, they need to understand that an air mass is a like chunk of air, right? So in my mind, if I'm going to picture air mass, I'm going to think of like a cloud, right? And I know that's not scientifically accurate, but for this case, I would pick something that facilitates students' understanding, especially as they are learning these concepts. So this one I think is perfect. And this would represent an air mass. So I could take this one, just put this over here. And because there are two boxes, so students are expected to model continental air mass and a marine air mass, I would want two different air masses that students could manipulate. And then I also need land, right? A picture of land and a picture of the ocean. So again, I would go to insert, I would go to search the web, and then I would type in land. And I think I like this one. Insert. It comes up really big. You could just make it, the way you make it smaller is you drag the corner box and just pull it down. If you drag the top or the side, it's going to distort the image, so I always stick to dragging the corners. And now we just need an ocean. So go to insert, go to image, search the web, and then type in ocean. Not background. I mean, you could do background, but... And this one looks perfect. So again, click it, press insert, drag it from the corner, and resize it like that. Okay, so now once you post this for students, they would have the opportunity to manipulate the model. So they would be able to drag it, and you would easily be able to see if they understand what they read. So like I said before, you may need to include arrows for students to model movement or some sort of like repetition. You could go to shapes and then do arrows, and then create an arrow. You can change the color if you whatever color you want, and you can make it thinner, thicker, whatever you want. So then if you gave this to students, they would be able to show you that the air mass moves from Mexico to California. So you could drag the air mass over here, they could drag the air mass over here, and they could drag the arrow like this. And of course, they could also do it the opposite way, showing that the air mass starts in Mexico and moves to California, but that is just their preference. So modeling is a really great way to see how much students comprehended and also give them an opportunity to make those connections between text and visualization. So before we wrap up, here are some tips. So before you ask students to create a model, make sure you try it out first. You don't want to assign them something and realize that you're missing a key component of the model, like possibly an arrow or an air mass. So just take 5 minutes, pretend you're the student, and try out the model yourself. You also may realize that something is too big or too small and you need to do some resizing. Give students options to write in sentences to support their modeling, and give more scaffolds. If students are entering and emerging and they still need support in making those connections, provide them with simplified sentence structures, or provide them with word boxes or clear picture dictionaries to help them make those connections. And again, take away the scaffolds. If your students are progressing and they don't need as much support, take it away. We really hinder their language development when we continue to give them scaffolds that they don't need. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email me at scenter I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email me at scenter@schools.newyorkcity.gov. I look forward to seeing you in my next video.